Imagine being the best engineer on your team, or the top salesperson, or the fastest programmer. You've spent years becoming exceptional at your job, and then one day your boss says, "Congratulations, you're a manager now." Sounds like success. So, why do so many people say the worst manager they ever had was someone who used to be the company's best employee? It's a strange pattern. Companies are filled with brilliant people who somehow become terrible bosses. Meetings get longer, decisions get slower, teams become frustrated, and the person who once solved every problem suddenly seems to create new ones. If promotions are supposed to reward talent, why do they so often produce bad managers? At first glance, the solution seems obvious. Don't promote your best workers. Promote the people who are actually good at leading. But then another question appears. How do you know who's good at leading if they've never had the chance to lead? It's a bit like asking someone to prove they're a great pilot before they're allowed to fly a plane. Maybe companies should test people first, or require leadership courses, or simply ask employees who they'd like to work for. Surely there has to be a better system than taking your best individual contributor and hoping they'll magically become a great manager. Except this strange practice isn't just common, it's everywhere. And once you understand why, you'll realize this isn't really a story about management at all. It's about one of the most powerful traps hidden inside almost every organization. The idea even has a name. In 1969, educational researcher Lawrence J. Peter proposed what became known as the Peter Principle. His observation was surprisingly simple. In a hierarchy, employees tend to be promoted based on how well they perform in their current role, not on how well they'll perform in the next one. Think about that for a moment. A fantastic software developer gets promoted because they're great at writing code. But managing developers isn't about writing more code. It's about coaching people, resolving conflicts, setting priorities, hiring talent, and making decisions with incomplete information. Those are almost entirely different skills. The same thing happens in sales. The top salesperson often succeeds because they're highly competitive, persuasive, and focused on closing deals. A sales manager, meanwhile, spends far less time selling and far more time helping other people succeed. They're measured by the team's performance, not their own. The reward for mastering one job is often being assigned a completely different job. If you're enjoying uncovering the hidden logic behind everyday absurdities, thanks for spending these few minutes with us. If these stories make you see familiar things in a new way, we'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. And if there's another everyday system that has you wondering, why is it like this? Leave it in the comments, because some of the strangest answers are still waiting to be uncovered. Speaking of strange, the biggest reason promotions go wrong isn't actually the Peter Principle. Because here's the twist. The Peter Principle is memorable, but it's often misunderstood. It doesn't claim everyone becomes an incompetent manager. Plenty of people grow into leadership and become excellent at it. The real insight is statistical. If promotions are based only on success in the current role, eventually many people reach a position where their previous strengths no longer guarantee success. In other words, organizations accidentally select for the wrong skills. But why would companies keep doing that if it creates problems? Because the alternatives are surprisingly difficult. Imagine you're running a company. You have two engineers. One consistently delivers amazing work. The other seems to have strong communication skills but only average technical performance. Which one deserves the promotion? If you choose the second person, the first might feel punished for being excellent. After all, they did everything the company asked. Rewarding average performance simply because someone might become a better manager sends a confusing message. So companies naturally promote the visible high performer. It's fair, it's measurable, and very often it's wrong. There's another problem hiding underneath all this. Management is one of the hardest jobs to evaluate before someone actually does it. Technical ability leaves evidence. You can count sales, measure productivity, review designs. Leadership is different. Some people seem quiet until they're responsible for a team. Others appear charismatic but struggle once real accountability arrives. Predicting future leadership turns out to be much harder than recognizing current excellence. That creates a kind of organizational shortcut. Instead of measuring leadership potential directly, Companies use current performance as a proxy. It's not because it's perfect, it's because it's available. Over time, though, businesses started noticing something important. If promoting your best engineer means losing your best engineer and gaining a mediocre manager, you've actually made two positions worse instead of one better. That's why many modern companies have started changing the rules. Rather than forcing everyone onto a management path, they create parallel career tracks. An outstanding engineer can become a senior technical expert, principal engineer, or distinguished fellow, earning higher pay and greater influence without ever managing people. The same idea now exists in science, design, medicine, finance, and many other professions. In other words, companies are slowly separating expertise from leadership. Because they're different careers, not different levels of the same career. Even leadership itself has changed. Good managers today aren't expected to know every answer. Research consistently shows that effective leadership depends more on communication, emotional intelligence, coaching, and creating environments where other people can succeed than on being the smartest person in the room. Ironically, the very habits that make someone an exceptional individual performer, doing everything themselves, solving every problem personally, always being the expert, can become weaknesses once their success depends on everyone else. The job changes completely. And that's the part many people never realize until they're living it. So why do promotions create bad managers? Not because companies are foolish, not because successful employees suddenly become untalented, but because we often assume excellence transfers automatically from one role to another, even when the roles demand entirely different abilities. It's a reminder that human organizations are full of invisible trade-offs. We reward what we can measure. We predict the future using evidence from the past. And sometimes those shortcuts work beautifully. Until they don't. The next time you meet a manager who seems strangely unsuited to the job, remember that they probably weren't promoted because they were bad at something. They were promoted because they were exceptionally good at something else. And that's one of those real absurdities that stops looking absurd the moment you understand the story behind it.